What happens in this exchange between Congressman Aguilar and Pete Hegseth is not just a policy argument or a clash of personalities. It is a window into how fragile the boundaries of American democracy can become when political leaders start stretching the limits of military authority inside U.S. cities. This is one of those hearings where, beneath every sentence spoken, there's a deeper story about constitutional power, public trust, and the role of the military in a free society. Aguilar begins with something basic, something grounded in empathy and responsibility, asking why troops deployed to Los Angeles were photographed sleeping on floors without food, without fuel, without water. Democrats always come back to this principle. If you claim to support the troops, then supporting them means more than slogans. It means taking care of them when you send them into volatile situations, especially when those situations involve domestic deployments, which are among the most sensitive actions a government can take. But instead of acknowledging the problem, Hegseth reacts with fury. He doesn't respond with details or accountability. He responds as though the very question is an attack. That tells you something important about the mindset guiding this deployment. It is defensive, reactive, and more invested in protecting the image of decisive action than in the well-being of service members or the constitutional basis for their presence. Hegseth's defensiveness is a tell. When oversight is met with anger instead of answers, something is being protected that cannot survive scrutiny. Democrats recognize this pattern. It's the same pattern seen when administrations stretch emergency powers, bypass governors, or deploy federal forces for political spectacle rather than legal necessity. As Aguilar presses, calmly, professionally, Hegseth grows even more combative. He leans into inflammatory language, rioters, looters, thugs, as if describing a battlefield instead of an American city with millions of people who deserve safety and constitutional rights. He frames this deployment as a moral crusade because he cannot frame it as a legal one. This is where the conversation becomes more than a disagreement. It becomes a civics lesson. Aguilar asks the question every American should want an honest answer to: under what authority is the president sending Marines into Los Angeles? The U.S. military is not supposed to function as a domestic police force. That is not a Democratic talking point. It's one of the central pillars of American democracy. Our founders feared the idea of a president using troops internally. They believed that the military should protect the country, not police it. And they wrote laws to enforce that boundary. When Aguilar cites the law, he is grounding this conversation in the Constitution. And Hegseth's response? He can't specify which of the three legal triggers applies. He just says all three. That is not an explanation. That is a political instinct masquerading as legal justification. And that matters. Because when the military is deployed inside the country without clear legal grounding, it sets a precedent that future presidents can exploit. If one administration can claim that immigrants waving foreign flags constitutes an invasion requiring Marines, then what stops another administration from using similar reasoning to deploy troops during protests, strikes, or political gatherings? Democrats see this as a dangerous erosion of the civilian-military boundary. To them, Hegseth's justification is not only flimsy, it's alarming. It conflates constitutional rights with rebellion, immigration with insurgency, and local governance with failure. These are the kinds of rhetorical leaps that historically accompany the normalization of military force in civilian life. And then there's the question of cost: $134 million. Aguilar asks where the money is coming from, and Hegseth erupts again, insisting it doesn't come from quality-of-life accounts for troops. But the moment reveals something bigger. Aguilar is doing what oversight requires, following the money. Asking whether service members' housing is being sacrificed for political theater is not disrespectful. It's responsible. But every time Aguilar attempts to pin down a fact or a legal basis, Hegseth pivots back to emotional framing, to attacking governors, to insisting that the president alone knows best. This is not the language of a government committed to transparency. It is the language of a government uncomfortable with oversight. What viewers should understand is this: in a democracy, the military serves the people, not the president. It operates within law, not above it. And when leaders undermine that principle, even subtly, it can reshape the balance of power in ways that last long after the crisis fades. Aguilar's questioning isn't just procedural. It is protective. Protective of constitutional norms. Protective of the troops. Protective of the separation between civilian policing and military force. Protective of communities that deserve law enforcement that is accountable, trained, and operating within civil frameworks. Hegseth's response is protective too, but not of democracy. It is protective of executive power, of political narratives, of the image of law and order strength, even if the legal footing beneath it is shaky. This hearing teaches something essential. Democracies weaken not when they collapse dramatically, but when lines like this begin to blur quietly. When presidents redefine emergencies. When troops are deployed with increasingly vague justifications. When oversight is treated as an offense rather than a constitutional obligation. If viewers take anything away from this exchange, it should be that vigilance is not optional. When elected leaders normalize the idea of the military patrolling American streets, the public must pay attention. When officials cannot articulate the legal basis for a deployment, the public must demand clarity. When the well-being of troops is overshadowed by political defensiveness, the public must ask why. Oversight is not the enemy of the military. Oversight is what keeps America from becoming a place where force answers questions instead of law. If you believe in constitutional limits, in democratic guardrails, in the importance of civilian, military separation, and in a government that answers questions instead of dodging them, stay engaged. These moments shape the future far more than most people realize.